I work for primtech North America, which was spun up about a year ago to be that North American branch of primtech and kind of help spread this in the U.S. We have customers in 60 different countries. We have other partners in South America and in Europe that handle business on that side. So what primtech is, it's kind of got a few parts. You have the 2D and 3D CAD geometry, right? Just like any other software. We combine those with smart objects where we can do simulation, phase checking, and that kind of thing. And then the power of that SQL database on the back end makes processing faster and it can store all that data. That also allows for integration with other systems, right? So since it's a database-driven solution, anything else that's database-driven, we can basically replicate that and then pour that data in. And the combination, the 2D and 3D CAD geometry with the database is what produces a digital twin, right? And I'll talk some more about that in a little bit. Just because I didn't say it yet, I'm going to throw a whole lot at you in this session. So if you have questions, please hold them all the way to the end. If we don't get to them, I'm in the booth right here outside the door of primtech North America. There's like 5 of us walking around with these name tags. We'll answer your question for sure, but I might not get to it here. We'll see. So primtech itself, we don't try to do all the different facets of substation design. We usually try to integrate with the software that does that. So we can take data from a lot of different systems, right? We can take things from Inventor, take other native AutoCAD formats like stuff from Civil 3D. We take things from Advanced Steel, and we can also push things into those other systems, right? So that's what this slide is. We work with ePlan and engineering base. We can integrate with different ERP systems. We have a Sim interface. We can be pushed into Esri and ArcGIS. We can be pushed into Autodesk Construction Cloud. Navisworks. We have a connector for Revit. So a lot of different things that we can do with that primtech model. So what I'm going to talk about today, this is the primtech lifecycle, right? So you see these different kind of quadrants. What I'm going to cover today is that design and engineer and operate, but ideally, you get started either the blue one or you get started digitized for brownfield projects. But you're going to design a primtech, connect that asset data. Those two things port into a digital twin that you can walk through and use for construction and things like that. They also have another step you could throw in there, which is digitized for your brownfield projects. So this is a service we have where we convert stations from point clouds. So sometimes you got that start point and you engineer on top of it and keep going, right? So like I said, today I'm going to focus mostly on the design and engineer and operate portions. The design and engineering goes on in primtech 3D, which is what most of the demo is. The operate portion is going to go on in primtech DT, which is that digital twin viewer. If you walk around the hallway, you've probably seen it on TV. So first thing to go talk about here is the structure of these models. So similar to other softwares, you have to tier these and you can't just throw all these models in one assembly, right? So main difference here, base building blocks are called product symbols, right? They're parts in any other system. They're symbols here or in AutoCAD. Those symbols get collected into things like bus supports and switches to build assemblies. Assemblies get grouped and connected together with buswork, and those make either bays or modules. Bays are unique. You only make one bay, and if you have the same run of bus over again, you make it a second bay. So it's using that to kind of make sure that those items that are in that bay are unique, right? So you only make bays one time. Modules are meant to be reused. So like if you have a switch breaker switch to use over and over, that would be something you'd store as a module that you replace. These group into part stations, which are like, I have a station that's 115 kV, 25 kV. I might separate it up so different people can work on it. That would be a part station, like the 115 kV portion or 25. And all these lump into that top level 3D model. So almost no work actually happens at that top level, right? And I really like doing slideshows, so we're about to go into a whole 3D demo here, and we're going to go ahead and build a station. So I'm going to throw a whole lot at you. The idea is for me to show you kind of how this tool works and give you an overview, but also show you different ways of doing things, right? So you'll see me do things different ways throughout this. But I'm going to go ahead and end our slideshow, and we're going to move over to the actual software here. So, like I said, primtech is built on AutoCAD. It's got two main components that open, and a third one that we'll talk about in a bit too. The first one is what you see here, Model Manager. This is your window into all of your working files, right? So you can see here I have checked out, this is what's on my machine. And then public folders would be kind of similar to using vault storage. It's what's on a server, right? It's your server. It's not somebody else's server, right? This is just storage that your company would have. In this folder, you can skin this project, right? You can see here. You have a lot of the same types of things I just talked about, like symbols and modules and all this. And we're going to work through kind of building from the bottom up, right? So this project is blank from a station perspective. It has a bunch of components, and we're going to go ahead and build some other things, right? First thing we're going to do is go ahead and make a new assembly. I'm just going to call that SDSIC bus support. We'll go ahead and open it. You can see these fields here. These are fields that you fill out that get ported back to that database, right? So that information is not in the model, it's in the database. This is your window into it to be able to edit. We're going to go ahead and open that guy up. Now we're going to start placing some components. So you see my origin here, just like any other software, if you want to stay kind of centered around that origin, just makes placement of things easier. It makes the software run better. It's closer to the origin. I'm going to place things for Model Manager here. That's this button up here. First, we're going to go ahead and place a foundation. And I'm going to kind of explain some things as I zoom in here. So, to place this, since I'm in AutoCAD, I know I'm going to center it on the origin. I can type 0, 0, and place it to origin, and it's going to snap over here. And then if you look at this one, you'll see these points, these pink and yellow points. These are nodes, and they're used for connection. They have no other intelligence besides where you place them. The color is strictly visual, right? Yellow ones are what I use for origins most of the time. Pink ones are connections, right? So that's what I place that foundation. We'll go ahead and place a structure on the top of it. And that's this guy here. And I have my node snaps inside AutoCAD on, and I pretty much use only nodes and I do the rest of it temporary. So now I can come and snap to that node that exists. Then we can start placing some other things. So we'll go ahead and place an insulator up here. If I could see it. Again, just snapping to those same points. We'll go ahead and put a bus support clamp on top. Now you see this was rotated wrong, right? And this is where the power of AutoCAD kind of comes in. Real complicated commands here. I want to rotate that, so I'm going to type far removal. Then I can snap to these points and use those as centers of rotations. So, kind of hard to do this when I have to draw my mouse and it keeps falling back down. So, select it. And then RO, specify a base point. And then you could actually shift and move around in those snap to 90-degree increments, or I could just type 90, right? So more than one way to do this. Then I could take this, again, also dig in AutoCAD, copy and paste. Copy, if you spell copy right. I have these nodes again that I can use to snap things. And now I have this bus support. So, a couple other things you have on these. We got ground and sting. Some structures have conduit. This one doesn't, but some structures have conduit. The way we handle those is through what's called details and detail assemblies. So these are, in the construction world, we have standard details a lot of times, and we say, well, my grounding is the same thing all the time. And on my drawings, I'm telling my contractor, come over here and look at this grounding detail for what you're doing, right? What you do in primtech is you just tag that detail to that location. And this can mean that it has 3D geometry or it doesn't. So I go to Model Manager over here. I go to my detail assemblies, and I have one for this bus support. I'm going to come here. I want to use one of these temporary snaps. You do that by holding Shift right click and picking what snap you want. And I'm going to draw it in the center. So you see this guy, it says GND1. So that's my ground detail that I don't want to show. What's cool about that is if I click that, I go to properties, you'll see this primtech panel, and right now it says geometry no. So I can operate here and not have the performance issues of putting all this stuff in here and not have to look at it, right? I know the stuff's there, and in these details is being counted. It just can be displayed in different ways. So if I go and change geometry to yes, you'll see my round pad pop back up, and then I can turn the text off if I don't want to see it, right? So for some things like anchor bolts and stuff, you might want them to be counted and not really care if they're sitting in that same spot. You can place these detail assemblies and have them counted without having to place them all. So that's our assembly. Now we're going to move up to kind of the next step of building things. So the next step up from assemblies, I told you could be modules or bays. I have a module made here, but we're going to go straight into bays. So I have this park station created. I'm going to go ahead and do new bay. I can save my bus support that I'm on. And then this bay is created. I'm going to call this one TX1. This is going to have a transformer. I'm going to go ahead and open that guy. I'm going to change my visual style. We have different visual styles you can use too, but I like to be in all the wireframe instead of 2D, so it tries to flatten things. Okay, so if you're familiar with doing things in Inventor, you think site skeletons for that whole station, right? Since we're building things 5As and these bays are unique, we do what we're called bay grids. Same concept pretty much though. I have this grid here, and basically I could take this value and let's say on this one, then I'm going to have a phase spacing of 8 feet. And then this one, I'm going to put in 96 so I can only adjust a few of them. I'm going to have 12 different spacings where equipment exists, right? And then I could just change what I want. So this first one is 240. This one is 120. 96, 96, 120, 180. And then once you set these up, you normally don't have to keep going through this. You can copy these and use them a dozen times if you want to. And then I hit OK. It's going to make this grid, right? I'm going to snap this. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and move it. And I have something I want to be the center of my assembly. So I'm going to type move. I'm going to come over here because this is going to be where my transformer is. And I'm going to say that goes to 0, 0. And in this case, I want it pointing down that y-axis. And just like any other CAD software, that orientation, it's not overly important which direction it's facing, but it can make life easier if you know the direction it's supposed to be facing already. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around that transformer spot I have. 180, right? Something else you notice, I'll rotate this around. I don't use a 3D mouse. It's just shift and hold the scroll wheel. You can rotate around. Oh, wrong button here. So again, same tools that we were just using. We're going to do place from model manager here, but now we're placing assemblies, right? So I could come here to this, and I could say, let's drop my power transformer in here. And again, those node snaps show up. So I have nodes everywhere that this grid intersects itself, right? So I don't have to go put nodes for me to be able to snap to. The point of this grid is that you have the phase spacing. You can pick things that the geometries it's sitting on, so it's outside of it. It's a little bit easier for you to see. And then you can use that to copy and paste over. But this is just locating things at all the intersections here. So I have that one. Let's go to the next one. It's going to be a low switch. I go ahead and rotate that one. This way. And from here, I know I actually have a couple more of those. So cool thing, I could do copy. And I don't have to go to the center again, right? I could come here and I could say, paste that one here, paste that one here. This one needs to rotate. 180. I could place a circuit breaker between. That one also needs to rotate, but only 90. And then we're going to place a high bus support over here. We're going to place a CCBT on the skin part. And that one's facing the wrong way, but now I'm going to place another one over the top of that, which is this gantry. And then I can rotate both of those at the same time. And then the rest of this is just single phase bus supports. So I'm going to go ahead and put a few of those. And again, I'll place that first one. I'll rotate him 90. And then I'll do copy from here. And I'll paste at these locations where I want it to go. All right. So we have this layout. The next thing we'd do would be to run Conductor, right? So I'm going to show you a few different things that we could do with Conductor, but mainly all that's in this tool panel here over here in the Design tab. So on Conductor here, I'm going to do a wire connection first. And important thing to note here, you have the ability to model fittings in PrimTech and constrain them where they need to be. You do not have to put fittings there, right? We do it for bus because we like to see where the supports are, and we like to have the connections because they offset that bus height. You want to keep that consistent bus height. For cable, you don't necessarily have to put them, but you can. But I'm going to show you the other workflow if you don't put them too. So for the cables, I click that point, I click this one, and you'll see this dialog. This is going to be the same thing that pops up for bus too. So it's going to be kind of consistent here. Basically, it starts off and it says there's a wire here, and I don't know what it is. And in some cases, that's fine. In some cases, you're early enough in your design and you say there is a wire there. I do not know what size it is. It can stay like that. In this case, we do know what it is. So I'm going to come over here to that button, and I'm going to go take my conductor from this library. So I mentioned the parts library called INTIS earlier. This is INTIS. So it holds your conductor. It also holds a bunch of different types of pieces of equipment that you can explode and kind of make your own. This one I'm going to go ahead and use some 954. This guy here. So now it knows that I have that cable. And in this case, I didn't put fittings, so I could actually use these two groups of buttons. So this one defines it from INTIS. That's the gray ones. These orange ones, what they do is they add something there that isn't necessarily defined. So this one, I do know my fittings. I'm going to go ahead and click on this side, and I'm going to put this 954 terminal. And then on the other side, it's going to be landing on that arrestor. So I can put this T, right? So kind of ride through on that T. Then you have other things just to change your cables. You can do multiple cables and stuff, and there's also default forms. You'll see some of those here in a bit too. And then SAG, I'm going to leave all that how it is, and we'll run it, right? What's cool is I went through and I defined all that in that one cable. So now, if I want to go use that same information to do a connection somewhere else, I can use this button over here that's copy. I can copy the properties of that connector or of that connection. And then I could just click points. And if we go back and check what you do by doing this PR edit after you selected it, we can see that that cable has the same properties, right? So that one will be very similar to this one, except it doesn't need the T because the T's already on that side of that connection. So again, I could do that same thing. I could ride through here, here, and here. Now this one, if I want to edit it, since it has that T, I could come here and delete it. But now that I've deleted that one, I could also use this tool, which is kind of like a format painter, where I click that connection and then click on the other connections that I want to make the same as that one. And then if I go back and look at that one, you can see that one doesn't have that T anymore, right? So I could kind of configure those and just copy and paste them around. Then we have bus. So bus, I said I do want to put fittings. So we'll go ahead and place some fittings on that one. So I'll go here to my symbols, clamps. This one we're going to put in expansion terminal. I'm going to snap it to that point. Again, I don't really want this one to be facing that way, right? So I can hold shift and I can rotate those around. Then I could copy those across to different locations using those node snaps again. Then I could also copy that to the different location here on this other side where I'm going to have expansions too on the opposite side of this breaker, right? On this side, I'm going to have a different fitting, right? Because it doesn't pay to have expansions on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a bus terminal. Again, wrong direction, RO. Drag it to the right angle. Copy. We go ahead and paste that over a couple times. So now if you use the bus tool, now the bus tool is a little bit different than the cable. Pulls up the same window, but the difference with bus is you want to click everything that it's going through. And the reason it's doing that is because there are actually bus calcs that you can run inside of primtech that know the spacing of those supports if you've selected those fittings. So to do that, we'll use this tube. I'll click my supports and my fittings, hit enter. Again, same type of thing. In this one, I'm going to go and define this tube. So I'm going to say that it is 5-inch. And then this one I'm going to say there's damping cable, but I don't know what it is, so I can click this button, add damping cable. My fittings are already here on this one because I have it physically accounted for. And I also have options for overlap. This one doesn't have overlap, so we'll just let that one go. And I could go ahead and do the same thing. I could copy it to this location. Right? So now I have buswork here. We can actually do the same thing on this side. So if I come and copy this one, I can come and I'll click on it, right? I could come and paste it over to this side too, and I could actually change. I put the wrong bus support in there. Let's go ahead and swap that out real quick. So that is a high. We need a low. Right. And then same thing. Let's go ahead and just run these because these will be different anyway. So again, I'm going to leave these with different properties just so I can show you how another tool works here. This one is going to have overlap of 3 foot. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy that connection over. Oh, wrong point. So I have that bus run out. We have this breaker, which I said we could do with modules, which we will in a little bit. And I would also run cable to this breaker. Again, I'm not really going to give it a whole lot of geometry on this one. We're just going to go here because I'm going to use another tool here in a second to kind of show you why you would leave things blank and kind of how that looks when you do leave things blank. Because it's pretty cool that you can go and do kind of preliminary designs without really putting a whole lot of thought in it. You just string a bunch of stuff together, and then you would come back and add more detail to it. Then the last connection we need to make is over here. So I'd have another bus fitting here that needs to be on the end of that bus work. So I can go to symbols, clamps, have another bus terminal. I can snap it using temporary snaps to the end of this piece of bus here, which it's displayed in a wireframe. It's just a wire. When you turn it to 3D, it looks like a bus. Right? Again, rotate. And I rotated around the wrong point here. So we're going to go ahead and place it here. And then we're going to copy it from here to here. And then this one, since I haven't saved, it's not showing up. Sometimes it needs to kind of recalculate that geometry on save. I'll go ahead and drop that here. And then in this one, say we don't want to place any fittings again, I could run here to here and just leave it how it is. And then I could also run here to here. And this one, we're going to look at what these forms do. So these are basically saying if I know something's pointing straight up or horizontal, and I know there's a certain configuration that those fittings are, I can kind of predefine that, tell it that without having those fittings present. So in this one, I could actually use this horizontal to horizontal and hit OK. Or actually, that one is not that. That would be horizontal and straight down. So I can go to PR Edit, change that one, and go to horizontal straight down. Oh, wrong one again. Straight down horizontal. Right? And then instead of fighting with that like I just did, I can go ahead and copy it to my other locations here. And then I could also copy, since that's the same cable that's here, I could also copy this one. From here to here. Alright, so now we have busword around this whole thing. The good check to do before I jump out of this model is I can go to this PR calculations and hit the phase check. And what this is going to do is kind of trace connectivity through the whole thing. So if I missed a connection that I can't connect, it's going to show me here. And we're going to get into this tool a little bit more here in a second, but this is just kind of my quick check. So you see these trace all the way through and none of that is solid red. That means everything is connected. I'm going to go ahead and knock out of that one. We're going to go ahead and go save it. Go back to Model Manager. And we're going to build another bay. But first we're going to copy this one. So I can close this one. Those of you who are in the there, and have had to mess with copy design in Vault, or even with alcohol, where it's a little more strenuous, you have to actually do replace the references. For me to copy this bay, I'm just going to grab this, drag it to here, and it's just going to make a full copy. So another thing I haven't really mentioned here, but inside these projects, since they're database driven, it's like its own container. So you can't actually place things that are outside the project. You can drag things into the project, but you can only have relationships back to what's in your project. So I'm going to call that one TX2, and now I'll have two of those bays. Now we're going to go ahead and make another one real quick here. This one I'm going to call TV1, because it's going to be a tiebreaker. Go ahead and open it. I have a cheat sheet up here with some dimensions. So same type of thing. We're going to go ahead and do a bay grid. Again, I'm going to do this one, 96, and then I'm going to add this one moves this way actually. Well, not 996. And then this one has 8 spaces, and spacings are 216. And you'll kind of see why I'm doing this here in a little bit. Alright, so I have this grid. I'm going to go ahead and drop it. This one I want to move toward the center of it. Is over here at my XY. So I can kind of look where the center is. I could say that goes to 0, 0. And then we can go place some more stuff, right? So in this one, I talk about how modules can be reused. This is all high bus, and I actually have a module for a high bus switch breaker switch. So I can come in here and drop that in that right location. It's not rotated correctly. So we'll go ahead and rotate it around that origin. And then from here, I could place a few more assemblies. So here I'm going to go high bus supports now. So I have one that goes here, rotate, 90, copy. And I could place that in all 4 of these. And then the only thing left here is to place these fittings and run bus. So I'll go ahead and place a few of these fittings again. We'll use these expansion fittings. Rotate. Copy it over. Copy one over on this side, and we're going to rotate him. 180. So you see I kind of alternate between dragging things back and forth and actually just typing in those dimensions. You have a lot of freedom there to kind of do what you want. There's also where you could set up hotkeys for copy, or use the hotkeys for copy, but you could also set up things to kind of make those hotkeys and make them run quicker, right? Then in this one, we're going to go ahead and run bus again, from here to here to here. This one I'm going to go ahead and define it again. So we're going to say this one is 5-inch. And we're going to say it has damping cable. And then the other thing at the end of this one, these kind of dead end out into nothing. So I have an in-bill. Putting an in-bill in a 3D model doesn't really provide a whole bunch of value besides it's being counted, right? So in this one, I'm just going to add it as a virtual fitting, that in-bill, right? And then I'll give it an overlap of 36 again. Then I can go ahead and copy that over. You can see the key theme here. You do a whole lot of station design with move, copy, paste. And that's kind of why it moves so quickly. This other side I'm going to run different. So this one I'm just going to go take my sports. This one I'm going to do where it stays undefined with undefined wire. And I'm going to put a fillet fitting on either end that's undefined. So what these undefined things do, they show up in a parts list and actually get counted. You just don't know what they are yet. And then they'll display here a little bit. Overlap, 36. Again, I could copy that over. to here, here, and then here to here to here. So now we have this bay. I can go ahead and change this view style so you can kind of see what that looks like. So you don't technically have to stay in that environment where you're working in wireframe, but it does make it easier for you to see on the back side of things. Another just awesome thing that it has since it's on AutoCAD, right? How many of y'all use AutoCAD in this room? All right, so y'all know what layers are. Y'all know how cool layers are, and that you can turn off things in drawings and be able to really depict what you want just by controlling those layers. Well, since these primtech objects are on their own layers already, I have these like hotkey group buttons that I can click. So like these grids at the bottom, and there's also these things called frame connecting points that sit up here. Those are all in a certain group on a certain layer. So I could come and hit this group and hide it. I could do the same thing for maybe I don't want to see steel. Maybe I don't want to see equipment. I could turn on all those on and off, and you can do the same thing in drawings since they're on those layers, right? So it kind of helps you work when sometimes you don't need to be seeing all the bay grids and stuff. You can kind of turn some of that on and off. We'll go ahead and save that guy. We go back to Model Manager. We're going to close him. We're going to take a copy of that one because it's going to be pretty similar in the other spot. I change that to GB2. And then we're going to go up into this part 115 and put all this together, right? So we just build at the lower levels, then we'll drop it at the upper level. I'm going to make another grid here that is super simple. I don't even care if that spacing is. I'm going to say this one is 50 feet. This one is 50 feet. I'm going to drop it here. I'm going to move it to my origin. And then now I can use that to place some of these bays. So something to note about bays. First one I'm going to place is this TX1. And whenever I place it, you'll see it load in for a second here. When I place it, I'll snap it here. And when I go back to place the next one, you'll see that one's actually grayed out, right? So bays only get used one time because what it's doing in the background is it says, I have this transformer that's in this bay. And it has this information and serial number and all this. Well, now I have another bay with the same transformer model, and it can look at it and say, well, since that transformer is in a different bay, now it has a different set of properties, right? Bays are always unique. They're also unique because you can do bus counts and things like that off of them where you want to take advantage of looking at those spaces and not reuse them. If you had a collection of these that you did want to reuse, you could do it as a module and then just drop it into the bay. So you're still making bays, but you're just dropping one module into the bay for this. If you change a module, it changes everywhere across the station. So if I went and change that switch, breaker switch, it'll update everywhere that I use that module. Whereas bays, if I had to make a change to just that TV1, I can make a change to just it without affecting that one that I copied or any other, right? So if you have things that you know are going to change, and whenever they do change, they consistently change across the whole station, you can make those modules. I'm going to go ahead and place transformer 2 over here. And then I'll go ahead and place my tie bays, and I'm going to drop these so I can grab a different point. But I'll drop that one here, and then move it with, not that point actually, but this one, because it sits in the center of this bus support over here, and those two make together, right? So now we have that bay, and then we can place this other one. Before I place this other one, I'm going to show you this other tool. So I did a whole bunch of moving where I'm just snapping, but say you don't want to snap it. In certain cases, you say, well, I'll put the structure here and it needs to be 2 inches higher, but I don't necessarily have something for it to snap to. There's these other tools here that help you move that. So if I take this model here and I go back to my design tab and I say that I want to move it in a very controlled manner where I only want to move it in one direction, up or down, I don't have to snap it. Or left or right, you can move it in any direction. I click a snap point here, and you could do things like click this DZ. The difference between these buttons here, they do a similar function. DZ is going to make it to where it only moves up and down. And it uses snap point still, so you can snap across the station to other things, but it only moves up and down, right? The difference between that one and this, this one with the little red line, that moves in a certain direction. So if I say it's going to move up 2 inches, it'll move it up 2 inches there, right? Then if I want to move it wherever else and I have snaps, I would do just what I just did. Come over here, and snap it to where I want it to be in that model. Okay. So now we have that full station. Turn off some of this geometry. I might go ahead and turn it to shaded so we can look at it a little bit better. And we have this whole station model. So other things that we can do with this, since I have some extra time here that didn't take quite as long as I thought it would, we can run calculations. So I'm going to put it back in wireframe for a second. And I went ahead and adjust it back. I'll go to this PR calculations tab. So the first one we'll do is phase checking. And I kind of showed you this from the other one. This is good for you making sure things are connected, but this is also how you do clearance checks. So I just click that button. It's going to come through and it's going to have me define the phases. So I'm just picking a point on each phase. And these could be run in any bay or part AIS. You don't have to have it here. So then go pick those phases and you see them trace across the whole station. So that's pretty cool to be able to see where in this model, it's pretty straightforward, right? It all crosses and it goes to the other phase. When you get into like tight distribution stuff where you can have all these taps up to main transfers to gray, sometimes people put the wrong mark on the drawing and it taps the wrong phase now. You could pull this up and trace it, but also if you ran two things to the same phase, what it's doing here is it's tracing a layer that's called metal across conductors. So there's no other intelligence here. It's just a layer that it's connecting across. It's saying, well, since this is a conductor that you just told me was live and it connects to metal, then I know that metal is also live and it traces it, right? So if you happen to mess up and you ran two phases into each other, when you pick that first phase, they're all going to light up the same color because they're all interconnected, right? So it's a real easy way to find something real quick that you would have messed up. Also, if somehow you manage to run something back to a structure without an insulator, or run something to something that was meant to be a grounding connection, it'll light up the base of that equipment too, because again, it doesn't know that that is supposed to be energized, it just knows it's metal, metal can be energized, right? So it takes that out of there. It's just looking at tracing contact on metal things. So once you have this trace out, you can also do clearance checks. So it does a lot of different clearance checks. I'm going to show you face to face and face to ground. That's the most common one, right? But it can do clearances to fence, clearances to vehicles on a drive path. So it can actually sweep down a drive path and show you what the clearance is to that vehicle passing on the drive path. And a bunch of different things like that. But I'm going to go ahead and show you face ground, face to earth. And I'm going to put some dimensions there that I know fail off of this. Because again, I kind of wanted to set this up for failure so you can see how these work. Right? So I went ahead and entered those. And you'll see something pop up here in a second. So you see all these warnings. So this is saying between phases 1 and 2, I have issues. And you could come and look at what they are. So like this one, for example, is over here at the transformer because I'm using a clearance that's outside of this voltage tray. So it's telling me that these two things are in clearance with each other. If you zoom into it, it's actually telling you what that distance is and how far out of clearance it is, right? So if we look at these phase to earth ones over here, these are actually at behind rigger, this is a pretty common spot to have this issue. These are actually from the conductor back to that control back on that switch, right? So since this is such a high switch dropping down to a low rigger, you have that thing to shoot. But again, it kind of shows you where it is and zoomed into it. And you can go back and adjust it and keep running this so you get them all fixed or decide that the ones it's flagging aren't actually issues, right? I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that. We're going to look at another one, which is lightning protection. So I have this model. I actually didn't put one more thing in here that I wanted to. So I'm going to add another static pole over here. And I'm going to pull my layers back out. Come back to here, go to assemblies, and then steel, I have this lightning pole. And I'm going to come drop over here. And then I can come and run my lightning protection tool. And this one is pretty simple. So you have options for different, I guess, standards you could run it by. So there's IEC standards and IEEE. I'm going to use what most of us are probably familiar with, user defined, which means you find a sphere radius, and that's what you use, right? So I'm going to do user defined. I'll leave my sphere radius what I have it. But then you have options here for protection volume and protection height. So what protection volume is, that's the circus pin, people like to call it, right? Where it rolls the ball across. protection height is going to show what a cross section of that is at a certain height. So if you say, I want to see what my high bus coverage is across the station, I can put something over the high bus, run it. It'll show me a profile of what that looks like. We're going to go ahead and run it with protection volume first. And then at this point, all you need to do is tell it what items to use. So this one already has some things designated. So if I go and hit edit rods, you'll see that these are designated. To add another rod, you just come and click another item, right? So that's kind of how you go and add rods. I'm going to go ahead and remove all of them, and then I'm going to add another one. If I had certain types of points on the top of my structure, there's one of those work points. It's called a lightning protection point. If I have those on the top of my structure, they'll auto find, and I can hit find automatically. They'll all pop up, right? So I have these guys. Put one here too, and then here. And then let's go ahead and run a couple of wires. I'm going to remove the ones that are there so that we can run these. I'm just going to zoom in over here and run one from here to here. And you can place them with the equipment and everything too, just for this purpose. I won't. And then once you have that to build up on the farm, you go ahead and hit generate. Give it a couple seconds. And it'll generate your lighting protection coverage, which if I switch this to something like shaded, be able to see a little bit better what that coverage looks like. So here you can actually see the edges of these buses on coverage. You can also cut sections through this with another tool. Like you have this piece here. I could go to section here, and I could say cut a section across. I'm just going to snap it over here somewhere to here, and then you could use what we're playing, which I should have picked a different one here, but we'll go ahead and use this one. And what that does is it gives you a cross section across what that area just was, right? Now it looks very similar to what this does if I say protection height. So if I say protection height, you just run it 200 inches. It does the same type of thing, but vertically, right? And it has tools for you to be able to hash these too, to be able to create those lighting protection drawings that show your coverage at different heights. And then before I go into the last thing, I have one more check tool that I want to show you. That's kind of the reason I left a bunch of this stuff blank. So you see these tools here. They're going to look kind of silly when they pop up with these little balloons everywhere. But super powerful, right? So I have tubes for checking clamps and pretty much anything else you want to have in this station. But the first one I'll run is wires. All right. And you see these colored balloons kind of pop up everywhere. So these balloons, the colors themselves don't mean anything particular except for red, right? Red means it's undefined. So if somebody did this project, say I did this project as a 30%, I sent it out, somebody picked it up, it came back in, and now it's an actual project, right? We need to go redefine all this stuff. Somebody could hop in, they could hit that button, they could see, oh, Kelby ran a whole bunch of Conductor, but he didn't say what any other was, right? It's not even going to designate what all that is. Or it lets you leave stuff out and still make your model in your drawing, but then be able to circle back to it and say, okay, now that I verified what that conductor size is, I can go ahead and change it, right? So you see these over here, these are the same fitting, so they show up in two different, or the same cable, so they show up in two different spots. All the rest of this, I put them to define. If you look at this bus, you remember we put the cable in that bus. So now the bus all has a cable inside of it that's also undefined. And I can go back and define those. So that's the one for clamps. There's also the one for wires. There's also one for clamps and one for tubes. The one for clamps is a little more useful than that one, I find. So this one's going to run. And what it's doing is it's looking across all these fittings, whether I put them in physically and actually snap it to something, or even if I just put a virtual thing there, it's counting it, right? So like if you look out to the end of these bus runs, you remember I had bus 4 clamps to the end of here, and I said I'm going to throw some end bells, but I'm not going to place an end bell. It's just an end bell. You can see here it has those quantified, right? So it's counting them. You can see here where I put these expansions. I have these here. You can see more bus supports. Anywhere that there was 2 fittings, you'll see them stacked. So what's cool about this is you can go across a whole station and look at it, and it should be consistent. Every time you see 2 balloons, you should see 2 balloons if it's going to be across all 3 phases. Then whenever you're missing one, you can go back and say, okay, well, I have an extra or a missing one. At that location, I double placed something or I missed something that I was supposed to place, right? So you can kind of quick look at the whole station and get an idea of what's going on. like in this one here, where you have in-bells and the bus support clamps and expansion, right? So you can tell it's there on all three phases. Another cool thing this also does, if you ever ran into it, if you accidentally drop something and it goes to the center of your model, which is inside of another object, right? And then you're pulling your build material and like, why does it count 7? Oh, it's C6. There's one floating on the origin somewhere. This is a real easy way to identify something floating off in space got accidentally put, right? I'll go ahead and exit back out of that. And the last thing I'm going to show you here is kind of how to get this into DT. It's a real long, complicated process. I'm going to go to this button over here. I'm going to click it. You'll see it read at the bottom there. And in a second, you'll see it open up a whole nother application on my computer. Hopefully it opens on that screen. So DT, I talked about we're going to use the design and engineer spot on that big wheel that said primtech 3D. And then the kind of lighter teal color one was the one that said primtech DT. That's what this is. This is the digital twin viewer. This is Unity based. It's a game engine, right? And it just ported all this geometry that we just built in this into this environment that now it will walk around. And to walk around, you can use an Xbox controller, or you can just use WASD keys like you would on any other computer game and kind of walk around and you point with your mouse. Different things you could do here. You can go in and say, I did this in this presentation. And I wanted somebody to go through and mark up all the things that did wrong in this model. They could use these DIM collaboration tools here, and they could actually pull this up. They could give it a title. They can give it a description. This is on that screen outside if you walk by the primtech booth. They can take screenshots. They can record comments. Those comments get saved here and also port back to primtech. So I can see those comments inside primtech. They go and address them, right? And they store here to where you can mark them up, you can send them to somebody else, they can add more comments and mark them up and be able to kind of keep all that in one file. And then another thing you can do is kind of trace this phasing. So here it's asking me for an entry point for my phases. So I'm going to say Control R to redefine them. And I'm just going to say this is the entry point here, just so you can trace it, right? And you'll see it trace across the phases here. You could even go and open and close these switches. This uses the layer primtech. So there's a layer for the open contacts and closed contacts. You can use that to kind of toggle those switches and be able to simulate switching if you made the power come into the right part of the substation, right? So this tool you can use to do a lot of different things. Like you can even take measurements. You could drop into different parts of the station. This is also enhanced, so a new version of this actually just came out today. Like got uploaded to the website today. That version lets you do things like sweeping clearances down this. So what it'll do is it'll take a value that's actually in primtech in that model manager for my face to ground, and it'll sweep that down the bus all the way across the station. So you can see areas where that bus hanging low actually causes a hazard because that kind of envelope or protection with that face to ground clearance gets low to the ground, so you can tell areas where you might not want to put a vehicle too close to, or you might not really not want to walk in there. But that's kind of some enhanced functionality. You can also tie all kind of metadata to this model too. So you can tie like photos and asset data and all that kind of stuff too. So this is DT. We actually have it at the booth. You could come by and run it on my computer if you want to and come look at some of these models. You can actually do a primtech Insight. You can download it now. If you wanted to, you have to sign up for an account to be a tester, right? But they come with some pre-configured models and you can go play around with it. So free use. And actually, I didn't think I knew it was enough time for questions. If this wasn't the last presentation of the day, I wouldn't. But I have some time for questions.